We're going to talk about the effects of PPI on the stomach and the esophagus. So we take omeprazole, we take Nexium because we have issues with GERD. And PPIs are very important in managing the symptoms of GERD. And if GERD is left unchecked, the acid that refluxes from the stomach to the esophagus, that causes changes in the cells of our distal esophagus. It makes them more intestinalized. And that in and of itself, this metaplasia, is not precancerous. But over time, if it keeps on gets irritated, you have a higher risk of becoming precancerous, and ultimately it can progress to cancer. So whenever we see Barrett's esophagus, where the endoscopist sees a salmon colored plaque, and we see intestinal cells, the next reflex thing that we think of is there dysplasia or not? And PPIs help prevent excess acid secretion, and helps manage the symptoms of GERD. And how does it do that? On a cellular mechanism, it blocks the HK ATPase in parietal cells. What are parietal cells in our stomach? Parietal cells help secrete acid in our stomach to help break down food. Now, with PPIs, it reduces the secretion of acid by the parietal cells. And thank you to Ezra.com for this image of just what stomach looks like. So we got our esophagus, this is the cardia, fundus. So these are just different parts of the stomach. The body, the greater curvature, the pylorus, and antrum right here. Of note, not related to PPIs, but H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, likes to live in the antrum. Okay, and then this is where acid refluxes into esophagus, and this is where you can get your Barrett's esophagus, or your esophageal cells becoming like intestinal cells, and with a greater risk of dysplasia. All right. Now, there are specialized cells depending on the part of your stomach. So in the greater curvature or non-antrum, like in the body, you have your parietal cells, which we talked about, which PPIs help block the secretion of acid. Now, you have your G cells in the antrum, and G cells secrete gastrin to tell the parietal cells, hey, you need to secrete more acid. And if there's too much acid, then that's negative feedback. They'll be like, the G cells will be like, I sense that there's enough acid, so I'm gonna secrete less. Now, with PPIs, it blocks acid production. So the G cells are like, what's up? I don't sense any increased acid. So it's gonna secrete the hormone gastrin. And gastrin has an effect on parietal cells by causing them to be create more secretions, more active. But again, they can't secrete more acid because of the PPI. So this will cause them to kind of hypertrophy and kind of have cystic changes, and it could look like it can develop into polyps. And you'll also see like little secretions, which I will show you in a bit. So here is an effect of PPI-related gastric mucosal changes. You have these fundic gland polyps. Again, these cells are made of parietal cells, right? You can have hyperplastic polyps, but I think more so it'll cause fundic gland polyps. What's the difference? Hyperplastic polyps are usually seen in cases of just chronic gastritis and gastric injury, but PPI is more related to fundic gland polyps. But you can also see like black spots as well with the PPI. And then cellularly, thank you to Path Outlines for these images, but these are parietal cells. Parietal cells are pink and fluffy, and you can see there's like little cystic changes, and they have little secretions right here. You see those secretions? The parietal cells are kind of stimulated by gastrin, but they can't release the acid, or or the acid is blocked. Acid secretion is blocked. So you get these cystic or secretions and like cystic changes here. And so, oh, this is a great picture of parietal cell vacuolization. And here are kind of cystically dilated glands. And if they saw a polyp like this and they biopsied it, so it would be consistent with a funded gland polyp. Yep, funded gland polyps. Now, I guess if you're not a pathologist, the question is, can this cause cancer? No. Research has not shown these funded gland polyps due to PPI or funded gland polyps in general being cancerous. You can have a syndrome called FAP, and that can lead to a little bit of dysplasia, meaning the funded glands are precancerous. But even then, the chances of it progressing to cancer is very, very low. So I just wanted to show you how PPI works, why it's important to manage acid secretion in terms of preventing cancer in the esophagus. And lastly, just something kind of a gee whiz kind of thing with PPIs, the development of these funded gland polyps and these secretions of parietal cells. I'll see y'all next time.